Hey guys, excited to have you on. Welcome everyone to Agencies Talk. We're going to be talking some fun agency stuff. Just so you know, we have more of a loose structure here where it's conversational. So if you're expecting a structure, it's not happening.
You're going to be disappointed because we have prepared nothing.
Nice. That's what I like to hear. That's how you get the real stuff. It's how I do the podcast. If you guys listen to the podcast, it's not. Sometimes I go on rants that get chopped out of the podcast, just so you guys know. I actually rant a lot more than anybody realizes based on that information. Anyways, let's get into it. Let's talk some video. If you guys don't mind, I know you do. You are full service, and actually, I think I just referred a crazy product to you guys. How's that going, Casey?
We had a great conversation with him Monday. So
Nice.
Yeah, really excited. And it's cool. They're actually starting with Kickstarter. So
Okay.
they're doing some things there. And then just based on our conversation, I'm gonna assume it's going to be a successful Kickstarter. And then we're going to talk on the heels of that about doing some humor and some connected TV and some cool stuff. Yeah, he was pretty excited, and we were too, because it's in the fitness space and we kind of enjoy that kind of stuff. So really, yeah. Thank you for the referral. Appreciate it.
Hey, no problem. Yeah, so that company was actually, the original product was called X-Chain, and I produced a document for them back in like 2016 or something. But they actually flew me out to New York City, and we shot on the roof of the Sony headquarters. And it was like, and then we did like across the bay in Boston, and we did all these crazy shoots. And then he did nothing with it. It was crazy. It was like that shoot. Actually, we did the inventor of what'd she do? She made a dog tag that had GPS in it. It was the inventor of that. So we went to her mansion and then it did a whole nother shoot. And it was just epic. But now he changed the product and he has to redo everything.
Yeah.
But let's just talk about that process. So when you have entrepreneur, they have, say, a new product, they're like, hey, I want to make some video for this. I want it to be really cool. Kind of how you walk them through the process of creative ideation and all that kind of stuff.
Oh yeah, Matt's our creative director, so I'll let him speak to that process. It's a pretty cool process.
Nice.
Yeah. So ideally, we don't take, we do talk to people who are kind of starting from the ground level, but it's always a lot easier if they have sales and lots of reviews that we can look at to kind of see what's important to their customers and kind of what that aha moment is. But we are big fans of Donald Miller's Building a Story brand.
Nice.
And so we will take the client and we will walk through basically a hero journey exercise, kind of putting the customer at the center of things and finding out, who's the villain. And then obviously, kind of we build out the back end at the same time, which we use the CVJ for. So it's kind of a two-prong approach. We use Story brand, and then we use the CVJ for kind of all the stuff that goes around the main creative pieces.
Nice. Now you said villain. Tell me about that.
Yeah. So like in one of the more recent campaigns we did, it was for a healthcare company, and they have a bunch of chiropractic clinics. And so the villain that we had there was pain. And so we personified pain, much like you see like in the Allstate commercials with Mayhem. We did the same kind of thing with pain. We found this really great improv actor, and we put him in this like pink spandex, and he's just like tormenting our hero. Just like, our hero's like throwing pills at his face and he's laughing because the pills aren't working. Because obviously that's kind of another like co-villain, is like the medications when we really want him to go to the chiropractor. So basically just showing how, the things that are really bothering you in your life, we try to make those villains real in the creative.
Wow, that's so cool.
Yeah.
So for the CVJ process, do you actually just teach them the CVJ and say, hey, here's what's happening? And is it part of the kind of initial contact, or how's that get integrated in there?
Yeah, I mean, we walk through the CVJ in our initial kickoff call to kind of find out what they've already got going on, because obviously these videos that we do are, like we talk about dumping a bunch of water in the top of the bucket. And so we don't want them to waste their money with us, and we don't want them to have a bad experience. And so we walk through the CVJ as like the very first thing, just to make sure we've got all those holes filled and make sure we're taking any money that's sitting on the table once all these eyeballs start coming in.
That's awesome. Now, in terms of the creative, process? Because I know I did a lot of brand development, and it was always a battle with the clients. I don't want to say battle, but it was a battle where I said, here's the concept. Like, I understand your space. I understand what you want to do. Like, here's how you should look. Do you do the same thing with them? And how much do you let them kind of guide the process versus you kind of push them into the structure?
That is an excellent question.
We do not let them guide the process.
Nice. I like that.
We don't, but at the same time, we understand that nobody knows their business better than they do a lot. So we definitely like their insight, but we don't let them control things creatively. What we typically do is we'll get a bunch of writers together, comedians, just great content writers and stuff like that, and we'll do a writers retreat. And so we will typically invite the client for like the first day of the retreat. And so they get to talk to the writers. The writers get to learn about the business through his kind of point of view. We all kind of look at reviews and customer stuff together. And so he definitely gets to express his ideas, kind of the direction that he'd like to see things go. And we can kind of talk through creatively, well, this could work great. I don't know if we want to go that direction, but a lot of times when we're talking to clients, we do try to gauge, like, is this somebody who's going to let us run with creative concepts? Or are they
make it good?
Right. Like in the sales call, I have folks who they come with their creative ideas, like ready to go. And that's typically, it can be a red flag if they're like, this is like, in which case we're probably going to say, what you need is a production company who will shoot this for you. You don't need an agency. Like, and we try to steer them in the right direction, because usually they're not going to be they know their client well, they know their customer well. But usually, the idea would be leave the heavy lifting on that part to the pros.
Oh, that's awesome. That's actually a really good distinction. Like, hey, you came to us for creative. If you want production, go somewhere else. That's awesome. So tell me a little bit about the retreat. So after they sign up, you do a multi-day in-person thing?
Yeah, that's right. And it depends on the scale. Like, we have clients who, the writers retreats usually for some of the bigger projects that we do. For a lot of our clients, we're not doing a full-blown writers retreat. It's we'll do like shorter social media videos that just have like a joke or two. And so there's not really a whole lot of, that kind of thing that has to happen. But yes, for the bigger projects, for the writers retreat, it's usually 2 days. The client's usually there for the first part of the first day. And then after that, everybody will kind of go off and come up with a concept, write something, and then we come back together and everyone reads their concepts, and we kind of pick one that we can all work on together and kind of pull elements from this one and that one to try to make the best script that we possibly can.
Oh, that's super cool. Now you guys put a lot of humor into your stuff. Is that kind of what people come to you for, or do you also do more serious stuff or other categories?
Yeah, it's typically more on the humor end. I remember there was a partner day a couple of years ago where Dom was talking about the science of decision making, and how you have to kind of, the gateway to someone's decision-making process is through the limbic system, where all their emotions are. And so we found that kind of the easiest way to get somebody to feel something before they have to start being rational about it is to make them laugh. So we do lean heavily on humor. We find that's the easiest way to do it. But, there are times when we'll go to nostalgia or something else, but mostly humor.
That's awesome. Now, after you have the script and you kind of, do you do like a sample shoot where you say, okay, now we're executing this and here's how it's going to look, but without all the refining that you do on the back end?
So I will typically put together a previs, which is basically, I'm not a good artist, but I'll like draw out each shot and kind of put in some rough voiceovers and, rough graphics on top and stuff like that. Sometimes we show that to the clients. Other times we don't. It just depends, because
clients don't always have the best imagination to understand how this is going to look, and we might scare them. For us, it's super helpful because we want to start understanding the timing. Are the jokes hitting at the right place? Is the sales copy working? So it's immensely valuable for us. But like Matt said, we don't always show that to the client.
Yeah.
No, that makes sense. But that's actually good to know too, because I think we're always talking about standard operating procedures and how it goes here, here, and here, but it sounds like it's kind of personality or project based.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So do you have an industry that you guys prefer? Like, is there a funnier industry?
No industry, but we love, to be honest, these days we prefer e-commerce.
Okay.
Direct to consumer, because we can it's the shortest, I guess, journey. We have historically worked a lot in healthcare, and I just did a sales call right before this, and it's great. We still enjoy it, but it's just one of those things where it's typically a longer sales cycle. You know, you don't, which is also why I like humor. I like endearing the brand to someone. You know, we typically talk about, you know, if we look at everyone who's a good fit for you, your avatar, you know, if that's the whole pie, well, you probably only got like 1 to 3% that's actually in the market wanting to buy right now. So the reason we like the branding and the humor is, how do we talk to the other 97% who are not actually actively shopping for what you do right now? But yeah, in terms of e-com, to me, it's the shortest funnel, like to get someone to watch something and then go over and buy. And for us on creative, it's also like the most immediate feedback. Whereas in healthcare, if we've got a 6-month, you know, by the time someone sees your ad and they're kicking the tires, thinking about it, yeah, we tend to lean towards the direct to consumer e-commerce products these days.
I love that. Well, we always talk about the quick wins and just having that ROI for the client as soon as possible. And that's actually.
Yeah, actually, I think it was Garrett posted a question in the chat there. We kind of start everyone on what we call our 90-day scale or bail campaign. So we quickly produce some creative and we get campaigns running very quickly. And he was asking, like, do we generally get solid results for those clients in the first 90 days? And you said you imagine the creative takes a bit of time to produce. So it's usually lighter creative that we're doing kind of right off the bat, like Matt mentioned, the more social friendly. But the reason we love the CBJ and the reason we do that on our kickoff call is we're looking for that low-hanging fruit and those holes in the bucket. So we've had clients where in the first 90 days, we paid for their creative before the creative ever launched, because like they had huge holes in terms of like email, like abandoned cart they either didn't have abandoned cart or it wasn't working, or they were missing some really important automations. Like even with just email, we've paid for ourselves before we ever even launched the creative. So those are big wins. And that's one of the reasons we love the CBJ, is it just uncovers those kinds of things.
Oh, that's awesome. So for so say you have the major project, is it like a 3-minute commercial and then you break that down into TikToks and everything else, or?
Yeah, so we'll have like a main creative piece, and early on, I mean, I think the first big one we did was like 4 minutes, and it was probably a little too long.
That's pretty long.
I think the quote that I think I heard Daniel Harmon say once was, as long as it needs to be and not a second longer. So that's kind of the gauge that we use as well. It depends on how much explanation has to be done about the product too. Like if it's something that, you know, people get pretty intuitively, we don't have to spend as much time. We can just kind of create some excitement around it quickly and, you know, buy now.
Bust it out. Love that.
So it just depends.
That's super cool.
And then that's kind of like the anchor of it, or like the main piece. But you asked about others, and Matt will typically jump in editing. Sometimes we kind of know in advance, like when we're going into the shoot, like we'll have a few things that we want to do. One of my favorites, I'm gonna tell a story. One of my favorites is, I think Michelle said one of her favorite ads of ours is for a chiropractic practice. So they have 8 locations, and that's been a fun one. We've worked with them for over 10 years, but since we've been doing these kind of big humorous videos, they've gone from 5 million a year to 10 million a year. So this kind of creative like can really push the envelope and move the needle. But he mentioned we hired an improv actor, and we had this scene in the bedroom shot from overhead where we had husband and wife in bed, and our Payne character, who's in this pink spandex, is laying between them. And Payne is like tossing and turning, and Matt has the insight to like say, hey, let's just turn him loose. Just let him go. There's no script. And that became an ad. Like just that scene of Payne tormenting the husband and wife all throughout the night was like, it was a great performing ad. And so, yeah, just those kinds of things that kind of bubble up that you didn't see coming, but on either on set or even in post, the way Matt tends to work with editors to get it all chopped up into. So you might have that anchor piece, but then you may have 4 or 5 other videos that are shorter that you're using and leveraging throughout the whole campaign.
It was a challenge in editing in that scene to try to remove the laughter on set.
Are you yelling at everybody?
No, we couldn't stop laughing. Like I had to leave the room for that shot just because I could not stop laughing.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So for new clients and people coming in, I think the hot topic nowadays is the UGC, user generated content, and how people are just using those for their advertising. Do you guys combat that, or do you say like, hey, this is complementing it, or how's that work versus the kind of the rough reel versus the produced?
That's a really good question. And it's something that we have wrestled with a lot because, we kind of have seen that trend, especially with the emergence of TikTok. That's kind of what most people are doing for their creative now. And we wrestled with it for a while. And we looked at different services like, if you've ever heard of Billow, it's like you can hire content creators to go create UGC type stuff. And so we're trying to find solutions for like this UGC thing. And then eventually we realized, you know what? There's already people doing that really well. I don't think that's us. I think there's always going to be a place for these produced pieces that make people laugh. And I think that's where we're going to live. And so that's kind of where we've landed. I would love it if we had a solution for that, but we don't right now.
I think your decision, it totally makes sense, because I think the UGC thing, it's novel. It reminds me of when people started using influencer marketing, where it's like, if an influencer isn't doing it, blah, it's not going to work. And even before that, one of the first marketing books I read was called Guerrilla PR. And it convinced me at the time that you didn't have to do any marketing. You just had to do public relations. And then I realized if you try to execute a plan like that, just like UGC or influencer marketing, it sort of works for a little bit and then it doesn't work anymore. And it's kind of this temporary thing versus a well thought out creative that's produced really well, lives forever.
Yeah, well, there's always the pattern and then the pattern interrupt, right? So when TikTok came along and the UGC, that was the pattern interrupt. It was like, oh, look, real people using products. And that's a powerful thing. But eventually, I kind of catch on that, oh, these people are getting paid for this, or, they have this underlying motive. And that's all I see now is real people using product, which is still great, but it's just not catching my attention the same as it used to. And we struggle with that as well. I was having a conversation at the last partner day in Austin, and somebody was like, do you feel like those funny videos, like everybody's doing that? It was actually Justin Rondo. He was like, do you feel like everybody's doing that? And it's kind of like, getting to be the pattern now.
Normal.
Yeah. And I was like, well, there is a formula that I think starts to get fatigued. And it's like, everybody kind of uses these same formulas once they're proven that they can sell. And so then as a consumer, you start to get used to those formulas and it kind of wears out. So we're always looking for like, what's the next pattern interrupt thing, the next thing to break it up and say, oh, this is different. That's surprising. So I think there's always going to be that thing.
Well, and the thing I don't like about UGC, because I do think it's effective, but it's so uncontrollable and untestable, therefore, and the whole platform of TikTok is kind of built off of volume, and maybe this will hit, and I don't think it's a predictable pattern that somebody could.
I like it I still think it's effective, but to me, it's at the bottom of the funnel. Like I would assume pull that out when we've already captured them and we were just trying to get them across the finish line. To me, it's probably a little more effective there than at the top of the funnel, personally.
So that's kind of the status of video right now, where you have the produced creatives, which I still think are effective and will be used for a long time, and then you have the UGC, which are effective right now, but you kind of have to use them in conjunction with everything else you're doing. Where do you see things being? It's going to be a big question. 5 years from now, are we going to be on Meta creating VR 360 videos, and that's what people are going to expect, or what's your vision?
In my opinion, and I think because Casey and I have talked about this a lot, I think it's going back to more of a traditional, like, I think connected TVs that's what we're focusing on now, kind of as the next stage for us, because we used to do TV commercials before, you had all this great data coming in from social media, which is now not as great as it used to be. But with connected TV, it allows you to do some of that, big creative that you can put on somebody's TV in their living room, but you can still utilize some of the data that we love as marketers. And I think Mountain, Ryan Reynolds' company, and the creative that he's doing with Maximum Effort, it's kind of throwing back to some of those old like Super Bowl style ads that you can run in people's living room, but still have the digital data. And for me, that's the most exciting thing that's emerging right now.
Yeah, the best that when we did TV commercials, the best we could do was in terms of targeting. I'll tell a story. Like we had a CrossFit gym that we worked with. So we helped launch the gym, did the branding and the website, and we jumped into TV commercials. So we shot a commercial for them, and the targeting at the time was pretty cool. We actually, we bought on cable television because you have smaller geos that you can buy. So we just kind of wrapped it right around their gym. And we bought on ESPN during the CrossFit games. Ooh. So it was like that was at the time, like we thought we were pretty cool. Like we thought like data driven, it was pretty neat. So that was cool at the time. But now we can do the same thing in people's living rooms, because when you're talking about these platforms, it's like Oracle Data Cloud, and like the data that they have access to. I mean, it's as far as the way I understand it, like it's your credit card purchases and your credit history, probably your, we all have these little shopping cards for the grocery store. Like the data knows like what we're buying. And so in terms of the targeting, we can now target like the whole country, but also just find our audience. And so it's pretty exciting to be able to do that. And again, now we're able to do that, not when they're scrolling through social media, but we've got them captive. And there's the point that, well, they're not going to click and buy right then. And that's true. Like we won't argue with that. But the CPMs that we're seeing, like it's very, very cost effective. We were talking with Bo Harrelson, and he had that great buy low, sell high. Like you typically think of that like in the stock market, but the idea of how do we buy our awareness? How do we buy our awareness for as inexpensively as we can, and then sell high? Like where's the high intent? The people who are ready to buy. And maybe that's the TikTok and the Instagram, and putting and kind of converting people over there. So that's what we're excited about lately, because the idea of being able to hit people up in their living room and those kinds of things is pretty cool for us.
Yeah, I think you guys are right on the money, because I think everybody kind of discounts TV advertising like, oh, that's old, I'm digital. And I actually have a contact here in Austin for the Austin Spectrum, and he sells ads, and he's like, well, what you have actually is the connection between the internet and the TV. And the TV is providing all the stats that you're talking about, where where they live, which tells you a lot about how much money they make and how many kids they have, and like a whole bunch of detailed data that just got ripped out of all the digital marketing methods is still owned by Spectrum and the big cable companies. And just to go even further back than that, my father-in-law, now he's very successful, and he has a jewelry brand, and his entire brand was built off of TV ads, and is still alive today because of those ads. And what he did, and this is, I don't think it's secret. Anyways, I'll tell you guys. What he did was he actually produced these commercials, and he bought the segments in between other commercials. And so you usually have, say, a 90-second gap that has advertisements, and you'd have like a commercial that's 25 seconds. And so there'd be a 5-second gap. So he actually bought the primetime segments that were like pennies because they're kind of crap, but he ran the ads so often that everybody knew him. And I say his branding was so terrible that they were memorable, because it was so obnoxious, and it worked, and it still works. So
my favorite, I tell the story all the time, and I don't know how many people outside of the Houston market know who Mattress Mac is with Gallery Furniture. I think a lot of people know because he's in the news, because he's got one going right now. If the Astros win it all this year, and you spend more than $3,000 on furniture, if they win it all, you get all your money back. And he goes and he hedges his bet. He goes and places a massive bet on the Astros, like millions of dollars. So that's because no one will insure it. So he just self-insures with a with a bet. But anyway, so I remember like when I was a kid, he shot a commercial and like went to the local, I think it was the ABC affiliate, with his tape, like his beta tape with his commercial on it and his last like $1,000. And he was like, here you go. And they called him back and they said, we can't air this. It's awful. And he's like, I left you with my last $1,000. You got to do it. And so they aired it, and kind of the rest is history. He all through my childhood, he's been doing TV for so long, and he's been doing these commercials that, I mean, anyone in the Houston area, if you wake up and you decide today's the day you're getting a new couch, like there's one place, you're not Googling, like there's one place that's in your head, because he has established his brand. And that's the part I was talking about. Like he's been talking to the 97% for years, like decades. And so when you do decide you're in the market, that's the one place, I don't know if you're going there, but it's the first place you think of, any Houstonian. So yeah.
It works is, well, I think it's a big legitimizer, people maybe it's older, like you have to be over 35 or something, but if you're on TV and it's a commercial, like I'm assuming you're spending $1 million, and so that makes your business real and nobody else is doing it,
Yeah, that's great.
Well, so do you see any hope for Meta then? Or because I actually, I think it must have been a while back, like 3-4 years. I was like, you know what, I'm going to learn 3D shooting because I'm really interested. I think that's the future. I think VR is eventually going to be a thing. So I'm going to learn the stats. And it was so difficult for production that now I'm kind of like, yeah, it would work, except nobody knows how to shoot like this. And it's so technical that producers just won't be able to do it. Do you see any kind of future that has that type of production in it?
I think it's going to be a long time, because like you're saying, there's such a gap just for competency on that. Like, I don't know how to go do that. And if we don't know how to go do that, there's a whole lot of people who don't know how to go do that. I don't know. It just seems like that's a long way off.
Yeah. And I think that the only thing I could picture is if some new tech comes out that has just crazy software that could do all the stuff itself. Because just so you guys know what we're talking about in terms of video production, where do you put the lights, and where do you put the camera, and where do you put the crew? If you're shooting 360, it's impossible.
Yeah.
But in terms of that line, do you see any, I don't know, new tech or anything that you guys kind of use now that just came about in the last couple of years in terms of production?
That's a good question. Casey?
I don't know. I mean, we're just like, I guess from a tech standpoint, we're shooting 4K, so we can, if we're going to do connected TV and stuff like that, we can output, we can do 4K. But to be honest, I mean, I guess one of the challenges we have with shooting is that, we're typically shooting, we've got YouTube ads and you've got connected TV. So we're shooting cinematic. We want that ratio, which is that wide 16:9. But we also, we have guides that we put on our monitors when we're on set. And so like it's in the 4:5 ratio, like you would see on Facebook, where it's more vertical. And the challenge is like, it's hard. You're shooting both, like you try to shoot one scene that way, and it's tough.
Oh, that's actually a great point, because we've done that sometimes too, and we basically shoot normal and then we shoot vertical, so we actually redo the scene twice.
Yeah, we shoot it wider.
Yeah,
go super wide.
Yeah, if we can shoot wider, we do, and just punch in. But there's times when you got to shoot it twice because there's just no way to frame it up.
Oh, that makes sense. Do you actually have any like exclusive, like you only shoot in vertical?
Occasionally, especially for, like we were saying, like those lighter creative social media videos. Like if we're just doing some like really sexy product stuff, we know that's pretty much only going to go on social, so we'll just shoot that vertically. But for the bigger projects, we definitely want to get as many ratio options as we can for as many placements as we can.
That's awesome. Actually, I was going to ask about that in terms of like the final product. Is it a package of like, hey, here's your stuff for Instagram, and here's your stuff for TikTok, and here's your stuff for TV? And is that kind of standardized, or is it just based on the client's preferences?
Yeah, so we'll definitely do a wide in case, we want to put it on a landing page or want to put it on YouTube or something like that. We'll definitely do a 4 or 5 for Facebook and Instagram, and sometimes a 1-to-1, same deal, depends. We will occasionally, like for the big projects, we don't really do the tall, like TikTok phone ratio, because that style of creative just doesn't play well on TikTok. It just doesn't. It's a different world. So we usually don't do that unless it's just like the really light, music lights product. Then yeah, we'll do the tall ones. But yeah, we do package it up for them.
Gotcha. Well, let's talk about, just something that we could all use just as marketers and even for our personal brands and whatnot. How do you guys recommend installing humor into stuff that isn't necessarily humorous?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think humor is even more useful for boring industries, because it sets you apart even more. For like healthcare, you don't see a whole lot of people trying to be funny. So when you do see a healthcare provider, making you laugh, that really stands out. How you do that? So I think we always try to find the excite stage in the customer value journey. Finding that aha moment excite is probably the most underutilized stage in the customer value journey. And I think it's the most useful for us because you find that aha moment, and then we just put all of our efforts into, really making that stand out and shine. And so if you can write jokes around the aha moment, either the before or the after state or both, that's kind of how you do it. And then what we tell people a lot is make sure you have somebody funny because, like if you don't typically make people laugh just like on a regular basis, it's probably going to be difficult for you to write something that makes people laugh too. And so just get some help, like either hire us, or if you have some production capability, you probably know somebody who's funny, get some help,
Oh, that's a good point. Yeah. Call your buddy that, makes all the jokes or whatever. I actually had that. I have a friend who's a aspiring comedian. So I was like, hey, could you make this funny? That didn't quite work. What I said with existing content. So I think it definitely has to be like a starting from scratch kind of thing, just to identify the topics.
Yeah. And we have a, like a brain trust too. I have friends who are comedians. And so when we write something, we send it out to people to be objective and say, yeah, this made me laugh, or nah, it's not really working. And so we will get help from people who are kind of not in the weeds, who are kind of, disconnected from it a little bit, to help us, with those jokes a lot of time.
No, I love that. Yeah, because you're definitely going to have jokes that only resonate with a specific audience versus, everybody.
Yeah, that's true.
Well, someone in the comments earlier asked about testing. How do we go about testing? Because humor is, it's subjective. And so we do a couple things there. Like Matt said, if it's one of our bigger projects and we've got our whole writing team there, we kind of we're usually laughing quite a bit. And so we kind of feel pretty strong about it from the get-go there. But at the same time, we're not always in the target demo. We're not the persona all the time. And so we'll do some informal testing where we'll kind of do, first off, we do a table read for the client. They're not there the second day, they leave, and then we really cut loose and work on the script. And so we'll kind of sit down and do a final reading for them. And we usually have the cameras rolling so we can go back and watch, when were people who hadn't heard it before, when were they laughing, when were they not laughing? So that kind of helps us a little bit. And then we'll test it a little bit with some people who kind of fall more in line with the persona. And we've gotten some really good feedback. We found some scripts that were almost not offensive, but people hated the hero. We wrote one that was more driven towards as a female persona. And when we thought it had legs, it was pretty good, it was going to be funny. Well, they hated the hero.
Yeah.
We had women read it and they hated the hero, and we were like, oh no. So I mean, we had several scripts that we were testing, but yeah, you kind of got to get some input there. But then we also test a little bit of messaging and hooks and things like that ahead of time. I can let Matt talk through that part, but that kind of testing can be important as well.
Yeah, so we'll usually shoot 3 different hooks. And so we'll test those before we ever like launch a campaign. We'll test the 3 different hooks to see which one keeps people watching the longest. And then even after that, we'll go back and look at retention data and see where there's, drops and spikes and things like that. And sometimes we'll massage it. If it's like there's a part that's really killing us, we'll take that out. Or if there's, something near the back where it really plateaus, where we're really keeping people for a while, we'll try to see if we can move that up closer to the front, that kind of stuff.
Oh, that's awesome. So, just in terms of offending people, is it possible to make any funny piece of, content without offending someone, or is it?
We haven't.
We have not done
Yeah,
that.
that's what I was gonna say. I'm like, I don't know if that's doable.
We usually prep our clients a little bit. Like, you're creating something that's engaging, and you're going to get engagement on it, and so you're gonna get the comments. Like when we did for chiropractic, we kind of we poked the beehive in terms of like the medical community. And they came out in force, and lots of comments, lots of engagement, but it was but then I mean, like, it's always going to happen, and those negative comments happen. So we've kind of learned to prepare our clients in advance that people are going to say, even if it's product based, this is stupid, why don't you just do XYZ? It's kind of like reading, like you read Amazon reviews, and these people, like, sometimes you read it and you're like, what expectations did you have for this product? Like, it's not going to solve world hunger. Like, what were you thinking this pair of shoes was going to do? Like, you have to kind of take it with a grain of salt, but you are going to have people who come out and leave those comments. And so you just kind of prepare your client a little bit. But also, like, Matt has taught me in this regard that if we don't get those comments, we probably haven't pushed far enough. Like, we haven't pushed the envelope enough. If we're not getting those comments, we might have played it too safe.
No, that's a great point. Yeah, because that's what I picture. I'm like, anything that's too PC, you just look at and you're like, okay, this is PC. Could have been kind of funny, and then it wasn't. But just in terms of those comments, so the trolling comments, because when I had clients and you get those comments, I'd always tell them, like, hey, you know what, just don't touch them. Either your following will protect you, or who cares? Just leave them alone. Don't fight them. What kind of advice do you give to yours, or is it kind of brand specific?
We typically tell our clients that they need to be prepared in terms of monitoring comments, that they need to be ready to do this. But we have seen, the example I gave before, we have seen our clients' customers come to the defense of the brand. And that is a really, really cool thing to see. You're not going to see that with a startup, but if you've got an established brand, it's really cool to see that happen and see them come out and absolutely defend these brands that they're loyal to.
But I've also seen Casey talk clients off the ledge too. They'll write up like this, 8-paragraph long defense where they kind of let their crazy come out, and it's like, whoa.
Yeah, like, stop.
Yeah, we don't have to show that side,
Well, they want to respond to the comments, and they want to defend their brand. And I get it. Like, this is their baby. A lot of them, they've had this business for years, and you certainly, as a business owner, you understand it. But we generally tell them, you're not responding to that person. You're responding to all the people who are going to be reading that person's comments and your response. So it's really kind of a kill them with kindness. That kind of approach we find is far better than trying to jump in and reasons A through E why you're wrong, Mr. Customer, or like,
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm like, man, if we just knew who the Wendy's rebuttal person is. I don't know if you guys have seen Wendy's.
No joke.
Oh, no doubt about it. Yeah.
The comebacks they come up with, I'm like, that just added so much value to the post. Was they'll come back to some other person's post. But
wait, Michelle, are you secretly the Wendy's? Is it you?
I wish I was, but I know who she is because I've read a number of interviews with her. But her name is,
so it's just one person.
Snook.
Who is it?
Lyra Snook. She's the head social media manager. I'm also obsessed with Duolingo's social media manager. Mm-hmm. So if you have great creative, I'm going to stalk you on LinkedIn. That is what we can learn from this.
So good.
That's awesome. Well, I think this has been great. Do we have other questions from the
I saw one
audience?
from Garrett about our awareness about
that's
the
a good one.
Cobbler's kids with no shoes. That's a good question that we are constantly trying to refine and change, and we're about to roll out, iteration, 1700 or whatever it is. But we have done these style campaigns for ourselves. We have one where we're cowboys and we're on this really long horse, and there's fart jokes, the whole thing. But we had that, and it's usually the offer that we end up trying to figure out, like, how can we package this up? How can we make it appealing to people? And then last partner day, when Uzair presented, he really challenged us because he has been doing really well. He's presented such, or he's done so well creating content at volume organically. And we were like, ooh, we have never really done organic content, but we're starting to lean into that now because of what we heard from Uzair. And so you guys can hold us accountable to that, but we're starting to produce content on the regular for YouTube and all the socials.
Nice. Actually, that was a question that I had, just in terms of how you guys do you guys monitor and integrate trends that you see in terms of video production, or is it more just your own evolution?
We have tried that. We're not great at it. We're not like using trending sounds and stuff. Casey and I are pretty old. We're just not we're not that trendy. So we're creating more we'll review other funny ads. We'll review Super Bowl commercials. We'll review people who have done funny stuff in emails well. That's kind of where we're starting. And I really want to do a dad joke face off with Casey. Nice. Where we try
that'd be awesome.
Laugh.
There's a couple of TikTok guys that do that. And
I'm sure
it's only like 1 out of 5 videos where you're like, that's a funny joke. The rest are just terrible. But it's
more just the struggle of trying not to laugh that's funny for me. It's not even so much the joke. It's just the
That's awesome. Yeah, I think somebody's seen that. Somebody put those guys in the chat, because they pop up all the time. Just so you guys know, in TikTok, because I know, but who's not on TikTok? Is anybody not on TikTok? Get on TikTok. You don't have a choice. I'm sorry. It's just how things work now. But anyways, once you train your TikTok feed, you'll only get the stuff you want. And that's the hesitation I think people have. Because it took me like 2 weeks or something. And I was like, I get dad jokes like every third video. I'm set, and then laughing. Yeah. Cool. So any other tips, just in terms, because I know a lot of people don't have your guys's production prowess, but they may want to up the level of what they're producing in terms of commercials. Because I think commercials, I rarely see brands have commercials, and it's so powerful to have that one produced piece that people go to your website and they see that video and they love it, and then you can do whatever you want on production after that, because now you've established that you're a professional. What do you recommend for people who want to do that first commercial for a brand?
Yeah, and kind of you're talking about kind of doing it at a level that's not as produced, but something that's still effective.
Yeah, just something that says, like, I made an effort to make a video that
yeah, well, I would say, first of all, read Building a Story Brand by Donald Miller. And I would say walk through that exercise and really try to put together a script that really gets inside the head of your persona and really makes an impact in terms of, their greatest desires and how your product solves their problems. And then get a funny person to help make it funny. And like we saw a long time ago, one of the very first social media videos that everybody kind of went was Dollar Shave Club.
Oh yeah.
And it's like, they had a good camera, obviously, but it's not like overly produced. It's just the dude walking through the warehouse. And I know they had to do a lot with timing and stuff like that, but that was all script, really. Mm-hmm. That was all just, he had a novel idea that was going to revolutionize, that industry. And he wrote some great jokes around it. And the production wasn't that mind blowing.
No.
So I think it's all script, and building a story brand is a great place to start.
In terms of that, I'm not, Matt kind of heads up the whole creative and writing side, but just some things that I've observed that have worked well. He mentioned really getting inside the head of your persona. One of the things that has worked well for us there is obviously reading reviews is great. Reading your competitors' reviews is great. The other thing is asking your customers. We did one of these campaigns for some gardening products. It was like soil, compost, fertilizer kind of stuff. We went to a garden center and just with cameras and just started talking to gardeners, asking them like what their biggest pain. They helped us write the script so much. And they actually, I mean, the lady didn't mean to, but she wrote our hook. Like Matt was asking people, what's your biggest pain point, your biggest challenge when it comes to gardening? And her husband, kind of frumpy, standing next to her, she points at him. He's my biggest gardening problem. He's always digging up stuff that he thinks is a weed, which is actually something that she just planted, and like just interfering. And that was our hook. Like that not only did she deal with, too much rain, too much heat, but this guy over here ruins everything. So your customers sometimes can give you not only great sales copy, but sometimes they can give you some jokes too.
Oh, that is such a good point, because I think just being open to that is a big thing for marketers, because you want to be the person who comes up with the idea. And I actually just had this happen to me when I was on vacation last week, where my sisters want to start a podcast, and they're like, here's the idea. I'm like, oh, great. And so I came up with like 10 names for it, and I did all the research. I'm like, what do you guys think of this? And I'm like, oh, these are so awesome. And then my brother-in-law listens and says one line, and it's better than all of mine. And I was just gritting my teeth. I'm like, that's so good. I love that you said that. And it was perfect. And I'm like, okay, well, whatever. It is better. Yeah. But you have to have humility with that kind of stuff. Like, oh man, that's, but being able to identify that, I think, is a really important skill for all of us to have. Like, hey, credit where credit's due, and take those ideas and run with them, because who cares where they came from? Well, it's awesome. So I this has been fantastic. And I think, we haven't actually done a video production type course in a long time. If everybody could thumbs up in the chat, would you want to see these two guys create a new course that we could blow up sometime this year, if they're interested in doing that? Because I think it'd be awesome. And I know we actually have that Harmon Brothers workshop, but it's old. I think you guys have done a lot more stuff, and really they're so big now that it's almost like, I don't know if it's almost intimidating to be like, I'm taking like going to master class and being like, oh, I just learned how to act from John Malkovich. Like, this is too far. How about somebody I could talk to? So I think, if you guys are interested, I'd love to produce that. And this is actually in line with what we're doing on New Lab, which is a monthly course versus a workshop. So it's a produced course. And so I think you guys would kill it.
I would love that. Awesome. That sounds amazing.
Awesome. Well, any questions that we missed that we should? Yeah, it looks like lots of thumbs up. I like that. And you guys kick ass. So that's an easy yes for me. Any other questions?
Too bad they got a tough commute over here.
Over here. Oh yeah, we got the studio.
It's just straight down 290.
Yeah, we can make that. We can make that happen.
Boom. We'll bust it out. I'm thinking like, well, we'll have to look at the schedule.
Every
September's
time
bad.
We have our traditions. Every time we drive to Digital Marketer, we got our little food stops on the way there and on the way back. And we've made it quite an event. We get like these great kolaches on the way there. Oh, yeah. And we usually have to hit Buc-ee's on the way home for some banana pudding. And that's pretty good.
No, that's awesome. Well, I think, and you'll have to see the content speakeasy is where I work out of, because if anybody's been here, it doesn't look like a studio. It's like, all right, you go down 290 out of Austin, and then you'll see an Exxon gas station, and then you need to go in the gas station. It's pretty funny. And there's no signage. We took off all the signage, so it's just a fogged out door. that you have to
That's
go
really
through.
funny. Oh, I really want to see that now.
Well, and actually, when you guys come by, I should have it done, but I'm gonna have a contractor come tomorrow and talk to me about installing a secret door to actually get to the studio itself. So you won't actually see the studio when you walk in. It's gonna be awesome. So we'll do a tour of that. Let's see, look at the questions. Cool. Well, this has been great, guys. I think it's, what you're doing is awesome. I think all your ideas are right on track with what I think is happening, especially what you said about TV. If you guys have never done a TV ad, like, you would be amazed at what it does if you commit to doing something like that. And it could be ugly as hell, and it'll probably be more effective. So there you go. There you have videos. All right. Well, thank you, everyone. Who do we have next week, Garrett?
Yes. Michelle, who do we have next week? Do you know?
Isaac Ovid.
There you go. Isaac is here right now. So there you go.
There you go. He's warming up.
He's doing some homework for next week.
All right, Matt and Casey, thank you so much. Where can people find out more about what you do and if they want to hire you?
Yeah, so I dropped a link in. We love working with other CPs because you guys just get it. You understand the CVJ and you understand how this fits in. So I dropped a link in. It's just our website, gravitydigital.com/partners. And that's where if you want to run the ads, you got that figured out, but you want some help with the creative, hit us up right there, because we love working with you guys. We have learned so much from this community. We joined for the training years ago, 2018. We joined for the training, and the training is great because we were hiring and we wanted our folks educated. But the community, the partners there's just so much value from that. And so love working with you guys. We learned so much from you. So happy we could jump in and do this. And hopefully we shared something that will help you somewhere down the road.
Well, thank you so much, guys. Everyone tune in next week. We'll keep on talking about this, and stay tuned for us talking about a upcoming course with the Masters of Gravity Digital.
Woo-hoo. Thanks for having us.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Thank you, everyone.